point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit. Greed in all of its forms. Greed for life, for money, for love, knowledge, has marked the upward surge of mankind, and greed, you mark my words, will not only save Teldar Paper, but that other malfunctioning corporation called
AEW. Well, hello, welcome to Crucial Wrestling. My name is Travis. It has been a while since we were here. Sorry, I haven't made videos in a while. Without going too much into detail, life just got really crazy for a while. Sort of a lot of really not great things, sort of back to back to back. That just sort of took me out of doing a lot of stuff I wanted to do, quite frankly. And this was one of them. For some reason, I really enjoy talking about pro wrestling and thinking about pro wrestling. And even though I don't always enjoy watching the product right now, although there's definitely some bright spots. This is something that I wanted to get back to because I enjoy doing it. For me, wrestling is nostalgic. It's sort of like a comfort blanket. It's like, I can put on wrestling from the 80s or the 90s or the 2000s or whatever, and I just sort of like, I know where I am, and I don't know, there's just something comforting about that, comforting about throwing something on, a good match or a good, old pay-per-view or whatever, and just sort of like letting yourself zone out and enjoy it, or even having it on in the background. That's what wrestling sort of does for me. It's sort of a place where I can go that maybe not everybody that, I know really is into, but it's my thing, and I love it, and I'm so interested not only in what was happening on screen, but what was happening behind the scenes. And so wrestling is fascinating to me, and I love talking about it. And so I've been kind of sad that I haven't been on to talk about it more. And so I definitely want to sort of continue making videos. I just had to really kind of rethink kind of what I want to do and how I want to go about it. And what I like to do is do a lot of more sort of nostalgic wrestling talk, going back and doing what this channel was supposed to be, Crucial Wrestling. I wanted to go back and sort of highlight the milestones, the sort of the crucial moments in the history of wrestling, or at least modern wrestling, sort of that got us to where we are today. And so those are the videos that I'm going to start making more of, is sort of just little video essays on, maybe starting with the Hogan or pre-Hogan era, how we got here, what those crucial milestones were that led us here. Because I love talking about that stuff. It's fun, and not everybody sort of knows how that all happened and how it worked, and sort of what the events were that led to, whether it's, the Attitude Era or the current era we're in now. It's cool to know how we got here, and what everything was built on. And so that's what I'd like to do going forward, as well as maybe some sort of coffee talks where I just sort of turn the camera on and just talk about whatever's going on in wrestling. I really don't want to do reviews of modern shows. I don't want to watch Raw and SmackDown and Dynamite every single week and have to review it and, tell you what moves someone did in a match. That's just not for me. And there's also other really, really good podcasts and channels out there that do that and do it better than I could. And so, yeah, I want to talk about wrestling. And so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm committed to filming more videos. This video that I'm making right now isn't really what I want to do sort of a lot of going forward, but I've just had this in the back of my mind for a while and wanted to sort of get it out. I don't want to always sort of talk about AEW or be critical of AEW. I've done that. There's certainly people who've done it, a lot for a long time and better than me. And so that's all out there. But there was a point that I wanted to make that I really do believe is sort of at the heart of AEW's problems. And the title of this video is Greed is Good. And I don't know that I would say that greed is good. I don't quite agree with Gordon Gekko there. Neither did Oliver Stone, who wrote and directed the film. It was his sort of critique of the late 80s, capitalism run rampant, Wall Street ethos that just bothered him, that he didn't like. And so that movie is sort of a critique of all that. And while I don't share all of those sentiments, I certainly don't necessarily agree that greed is good. But there is sort of a nugget of truth in there, that there's sort of a clarifying dynamic to needing to make money, and to be given money because you are providing a good or service that people genuinely want. And also, I think there's something to be said for needing to make money to be successful. And this is where I think Tony Khan is maybe always going to be limited, or always going to have something that doesn't allow him or doesn't require him to sort of push beyond himself. Say what you want about Vince McMahon, but in the late 90s, he was getting his butt kicked, and it became existential for him. It was, hey, if they keep kicking our butts, there's a chance we don't make it through this. And so Vince really had to respond to that. He had to respond to the fact that his competitor was beating him on a weekly basis. And it was affecting his ability to pay his talent. It was affecting his ability to get TV deals and advertising and all of that. It was hurting the bottom line. And for Vince McMahon, even though he was wealthy, this was still existential for him, because if he had gone out of business in the late 90s, if the WWF have folded, if he would have had to have declared bankruptcy, that would have genuinely negatively affected his life in a real way, and the lives of others in a very real way. With Tony Khan, because he didn't slowly build a business from the ground up, and you can say what you want about Vince McMahon's business practices, and I probably wouldn't disagree with you in most cases, but Vince took it was a large but not national, not anywhere near as big as it is company in the early 80s, to this gigantic, enormous $5 billion company, that it is now. And Tony Khan didn't have to do that. And not that there's necessarily anything wrong with that either. But for Tony, if AEW goes out of business, his lifestyle is not affected. He's not going to be worried about, will he have to sell his house? Will his kids be able to go to, the school that they're in? Will they have to move? Will he have to move in with his dad? None of these things are real questions for Tony Khan. If AEW fails, sucks. It's not what he wants, obviously. I'm sure he wants AEW to succeed, but there's not this sort of innate drive in him that my life and livelihood depend on this business being successful. So I need to do whatever the market is telling me to do. And the market are the fans. Now, I'm not going to address the TV deal. I understand he got, AEW got a fairly good TV deal with Warner Brothers Discovery, all that, and they're making money. I understand all of those arguments. I do. But eventually, you can lose enough market share, you can lose enough fans to where the ratings do slip to a point where you're not a safe bet for networks anymore, and you're not going to get those sort of increasing revenues whenever it comes time to renegotiate a deal. And also, as you know, if you're an AEW fan, it's got to suck to go to an arena, especially when they're going to often basketball arenas, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17,000 seat arenas, and there's 2,500 people there. There's 3,000 people there, and you're looking over on the other side, behind the hard cam, and there's no one there, and the wrestler's out there cutting a promo, and he's just staring at empty seats. He's staring at no one. And if you're there in that crowd, it's got to be disheartening. It's got to really sort of suck, to be honest with you. And again, the problem, I think, is that, and look, Vince McMahon often went several years stuck in a rut. Many of you remember, the late 2010s, which is kind of where AEW was born, in this place where kind of WWE was in a creative low. Some of you, like me, remember the early to mid 90s. And even though that era holds a kind of a special place in my heart, and I enjoy certain aspects of it, it certainly was a downtime in the business, and it took Vince a long time, and it took him getting his butt kicked to really sort of turn things around. But there were times in 95 and early 96 when the WWE and Vince McMahon were really struggling, and the business could have ended there. And so this was a time where Vince McMahon was really sort of having to see his own failure and recognize something's got to give here. Something's got to change here. Now that leads to him bringing in Vince Russo, and there's some changes for the good, some for the not so good. But all in all, ultimately, Vince McMahon, his livelihood, his life was tied to the WWE. If the WWE failed, he failed. If the WWE went under, he quite possibly went bankrupt. In 95, he was using his own fortune to make payroll for people. And so his own money was on the line for real. And he was not a billionaire at the time. And so, anyway, I say all that sort of to go, I understand that Vince and others have been guilty of similar things. But I think for Tony Khan, whenever your father is a billionaire, and if AEW goes under, it's a tax write-off, it's a little bit of embarrassment, and everybody shakes hands and goes home, but it doesn't have the potential to just destroy his life, to just wreck his life if AEW doesn't do well. And so for Tony Khan, he can sort of indulge his sort of worst inclinations, and as long as there's still some viewership, and as long as there's still some people coming and some people watching, and there's they're still getting TV deals, he can keep going, and he can keep sort of indulging those worst instincts. But the fact is, right now, part of the problem with AEW is that Tony Khan is shielded from the sort of the reality of, hey, your business is failing, because if the business fails, it's not going to sort of ruin his life. And I think that's actually really important. Dave Ramsey likes to say that money, that dollar bills,
Credit cards, stupid. Student loans, stupid. Car payments, stupid on steroids.
think of them as tokens of appreciation, right? That if you have something to offer that I find valuable, that I hand over tokens of appreciation in return for that good, that service, or that piece of entertainment, right? And what we see is less and less and less and less people are handing over those tokens of appreciation to AEW to buy tickets to the events. Less and less and less people are tuning in. Just all you gotta do is sit on your couch and flip to the channel, and less people want to do that. We're now in an era at the time I'm making this video where the high 500,000s, low 600,000s, that's the norm. Somewhere around 580 to 610 is kind of that's kind of where we are right now, and it could go lower. And so, I asked myself, if this was me and I had some real skin in the game, and this was a company that I had built from scratch, and that my livelihood, my family's livelihood, it all depended on this business going well, that I would have to listen to the audience. I would have to look out there and go, something we're doing is not working. And so when it comes to the Gordon Gekko Wall Street quote, greed is good, he says it clarifies. It makes what you need to do clear. And when you don't sort of have that existential dread of, if this doesn't work, it could destroy me. If you don't sort of have that, then you don't really have to respond whenever the business starts to fail. And that's, I think, one of the key core issues with AEW is that Tony Khan can indulge his, these ideas and these 14-year-old fantasies when he was, booking his federation, on wrestling forums. He can sort of just do that and play all that and buy all of his his real life action figures, and put them in matches together. And even when it's not working, and even when the crowd is sitting there dead, by the way, a crowd that paid money to see you, and they're not even reacting. They're sitting there, on their hands, just sort of. Woo. That's bad, and this video has gone long enough, but hopefully I've made the point that I'm not advocating for greed. I'm not advocating that, all billionaires need to make more billions of dollars or whatever. Although I'm not angry at wealthy people for making money. The U.S. economy is an elastic economy. If someone else makes a lot of money, it actually does not inhibit me from making any money, right? There's not a fixed sum of money in the economy. Therefore, a billionaire can make billions of dollars, and whether that's morally good or whatever, that's none of my business. I can still he didn't take all of the money out of the economy. So that's not how our economy works. So I'm not angry at billionaires for being wealthy. But in this case, what I am saying is that the son of a billionaire who doesn't really know what it's like to face bankruptcy, to face what failure would mean for most of us if we started a business and it failed, that he doesn't have to respond like we might. He doesn't have to respond like Vince ultimately did in the late 90s. And that's a problem. And I don't know how you motivate someone who isn't intrinsically concerned with what might happen if they fail. I don't know how you motivate them to turn things around, to take some of the criticism to heart and learn from it and grow. because again, as we see, the proof is in the pudding. It's right. I mean, this, whether you like my opinion that AEW is not doing great, or that I don't like what they are presenting. The fact is, their fans don't seem to enjoy it that much. A lot of people, I think, have just stuck their flag in the AEW dirt and gone, boom, I'm AEW all the way. But honestly, they don't seem very interested, but they've planted their flag, and so they have to sort of stick with it. But fewer and fewer are. And so, look, I would love there to be a secondary company making really great wrestling out there. But right now, in my opinion, and in the opinion of the viewers who have walked away in droves, they're not. And so again, I don't want to always just pile on AEW. It's just, there's a lot of raw potential there for the most part. I mean, a lot of guys really need to learn how to work and work for TV, work for American audiences, and work in a way. They need to learn how to work and not just do moves, really. There's a difference between working and doing moves. And I think there's a lot of the people in AEW come from a wrestling philosophy and independent wrestling philosophy that just is about doing moves and not really about working, and that's two very different things. You can use those moves to work, but doing moves is not necessarily working. And so anyway, a little rusty, rambled a lot, but hopefully that made some sense. That the key of it being, there needs to be real, genuine motivation to succeed and to not fail. And that failure could be an existential threat for you and your family. Not that you die or whatever, but certainly that your life is impacted negatively, in a serious way, if this business does not work, because that motivates you to do better, to work harder, to listen to your customers, to serve them better. And that's what I want for AEW. That's what I want for WWE. And there's been times when WWE hasn't done that. And so anyway, rambled enough. Just wanted to sort of get back on here. I made a commitment to getting a video out on January 1st. So that is what I'm going to do, whether this video sucks or not. Sure, some of you are typing away, absolutely, it sucked, go F yourself. And that's fine. I'd love to hear your opinion in the comments. Let me know kind of, if you think I'm on track, or if you disagree, that's totally fine. And also kind of, when it comes to channels like this that sort of do wrestling nostalgia, which is kind of the direction I'd like to go in, what do you enjoy? What is it that you like about wrestling and nostalgia, and would like to see more of, or like to see someone really take a crack at and make videos about, and sort of do deep dives on, or explanations of, or sort of connect the dots to, because that's where I'd really like to go with this. And again, like I said, I'm also kind of going to do some, just kind of turn the camera on, make some coffee, and sort of just talk about wrestling every once in a while, and just post those and see how that goes. Well, I've gone on long enough. I really appreciate those of you who are still there, who clicked on this video. Thank you. Sorry for being gone so long. It's been a little bit of a rough one, but I'm glad to be back. And yeah, love to know how you feel, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you.